We're here with Vic Flick in Las Vegas, and we're going to be talking about his career and all the amazing things that he's done in it. And obviously, we're going to be talking about the Bond thing.
Yes.
So thanks for being here, Vic.
Oh, pleasure, really is.
Let's talk about how you got into the music business, like playing piano with your dad, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's right. Because when I was about 6 or so, my father was a teacher, a music teacher and a general studies teacher. And my mother was like a sort of, what do you call it, amateur operatic singer. She had a lovely voice. And it got to, when I was about 14, my father started this band because he went to some local function and the band was so bad, the guys were so bad. He said, I can do better than this, I'm going to go and start a little band up. So him and a neighbour and the neighbour's son, and my brother who played violin, but as the neighbour played violin, he went on to bass. And there was me with nothing because my father was playing the piano, see. So then this neighbour, he worked for Shellmex, and there was this Gibson Kalamazoo on the thing for £5, back then. Lovely little guitar. And so he bought that for me. He said, learn the guitar, play that, and join the band. So I wore myself out, fingers all sore and bleeding and stuff like this. And got a Tank Commander's microphone and clamped it onto the machine head with a sort of elastic clamp. Plugged it into my father's radio, and that was me on an electric guitar roaring away. So that was about 14, 15 and 16, and then I started doing a few gigs. And I laid concrete. One summer vacation from school, I laid concrete for the whole time and earned enough money to buy a Hofner President. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Had all the markings on it and the inlay and stuff. I thought, I was looking at this thing, I've got to have that. And I can't remember how much it was, but I bought it, case and things. That was back in the day when you walked down the street with a guitar case, people say, what's that? And you say, oh, it's a guitar case. But now they say, hey, man, what's in that?
Yeah, exactly.
What guitar you got, so. And it's wonderful the guitar has become such a part of society, really. So you don't see, if it's a young kid, they've got a guitar in their bedroom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I started playing gigs and doing some bits of jazz stuff in pubs and things. And I met this bass player, George Jennings, very good bass player. And he introduced me to Bob Court. He said, hey, you should, the way you're playing, you want to get something. The guitar player with Bob Court's leaving. He was a BBC guy and he'd been transferred. And he said, he's got a tour coming up and he wants a guitar player. So I said, oh, okay. So he said, here's all the discs. So I took them, learned all the solos, did all the bit, and went back and did an audition. And Bob Court said, yeah, come on, welcome. And the tour was Paul Anka's first tour. And on it was of course the Bob Court Skiffle and John Barry 7, Paul Anka and a couple of girl groups, I can't remember their names. And that's when I met John Barry, you see. And because I'd learnt the piano and I could read music, he realised that I could read music and asked me to join the band because the guitar player in the band couldn't read music and he was getting fed up with touring and stuff. And he said, join the band, so I did. And that was one of my horrendous moments because he gave me the music, 20 minutes of music written out, about 10 days, week to 10 days before this big night at the Metropolitan Edgware Road, the Metropolitan Theatre Edgware Road, where John Barry had already invited all these agents and BBC producers and, the higher echelon of the music business in London. And they were all there, and I had to memorise all this music, It's got like 2, 3, 4. Anyway, I did it, and it went on, and it sort of developed from there, But the big changing moment, I suppose, in my life was when John Barry did his String Beat album. And not knowing it, of course, but it was all like virtual solo guitar all the way through for this album in front, or being backed by a big string section. Of course, as you know, most of the contractors and fixers are violinists or viola players. And there I was, sitting like this with like a wall of violin players and contractors and cellists and God knows what else, playing all day long, you know. And of course, they saw that I could read music, and that was it, bingo. Then the phone started ringing, and it took off from then, really.
It must have been kind of cool to start your career in a time when the guitar was kind of in the back, but then you were there when it started becoming the important instrument or the solo instrument in music.
That's right. Yeah.
Because for a long time the guitar was just in the back.
Well, nothing. I mean, there are stories of the singer in the band used to have a guitar with rubber strings on and just play to do something when you're not singing. But it's developed. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, one of my idols was Tal Farlow, a guitar player who was a wonderful person. I met him once. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and funnily enough, he was a sign painter. His vocation was painting names on the back of boats. You know,
wow.
I probably didn't know that, but a little known fact. But he played guitar so well that people wouldn't let him stop. So with his big hands, fantastic. And of course, then there was the Barney Kessels and all those people which I listened. Charlie Christian, who was an influence, first electronic guitar or something, electric guitar. And all these guys were sort of coming over, and guys were bringing these albums and records from the States, and we were playing them, and it was all good music. And so I changed my style. I became this sort of like more of a solo tune player than much. Which is one of the things that attracted, I suppose, John Barry, because I could play the tunes. But then when it came to do, for example, the Hard Day's Night, that's when Sir George Martin, wanted me to do like that solo on the end of the thing. He said, I want your sound on it. So I thought, oh, great, cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
George Martin, a nice guy. Yeah, he had a few breaks himself, but I mean, he getting the Beatles was quite good.
Yeah. A little bit of a break.
Well, the story was, of course, I mean, the Beatles have been shot around all the Pye, Decca, Phillips and all that, and they said, no, we don't want those in. Bloody Liverpoolites, Liverpudlians are playing, twanging guitars. And they went to George Martin, and he said, well, I'll see. He said, I can do something with them, but I'll have to have a nod from the higher-ups, because he was like, well, pro tem A&R man, if you know what I mean.
It's kind of funny how guitar playing went full circle. You were influenced by a lot of American guitar players.
That's right.
And then guys, my generation, I'm pretty much influenced by English guitar players.
Is that right?
Yeah. Most of my influences are English guys. It kind of came full circle there a little bit.
Well, it had, you see, then there was that British invasion time, which was like the 60s, 64 and all that time. And I was on quite a lot of the tunes and the recordings that came across that was the British invasion.
Let's talk about what was probably one of the more defining moments in your career, and that would have to be the James Bond theme.
Yes.
How did you land that one?
Well, I mean, John Barry landed it, but he was helped because there was a film called Beat Girl that featured this Adam Faith, sort of the wonder boy at the moment. And when they filmed Dr. No, the Broccoli's and things, it was filmed in Jamaica. And they asked Monty Norman to do the music. Well, he did. He went to Jamaica, had a nice time, and came back with a tape full of bongo players and stuff and other bits and pieces. But he didn't actually have a theme, which could identify James Bond, So Peter, somebody, I can't remember his last name, who was the editor on the films, said, we want to sound like it was on Beat Girl. Of course, the sound was dang 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 dang. So anyway, they asked John Barry, but to be involved with it. But because Monty Norman had been commissioned and contracted to write the music actually had to be his. See? So he scuffled off and came back with this theme, which was like da 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 dee da da dee da dee da da. So anyway, John Barry got that, and then he said, "Come around the apartment," which was when he was living in London. went round there and he was saying, well, should we do it this way? I said, yeah, but let's put the guitar down low and crash it out, you know. And okay, so neither of us realised what it was going to be. I mean, it was just another session of a chance of John Barry getting some film work, you know. We didn't realise that it was going to go on like a series of 24 big major films.
And probably the most recognized music
yeah.
intro to any movie. Maybe that and Jaws are probably about the two most recognizable.
That's right. That's right. I mean, people say, you know, well, what did you do? I said, well, did you know, like, da-ga-da-dang-ga-da? Oh, yeah. Did you do that? I said, yeah. Oh, yes, I did. That's kind of, it's been with me now for, what, 50 years or something. And I'm proud of it, and I'm proud to be associated with it, and I'm proud of all the things that have developed from it, you know. Yeah. But at the time, no idea that it was going to be like that. In fact, I mean, the Broccolis was kind of down to their last penny, and they didn't know what was going to happen because they couldn't sell. So I heard from a very sort of reliable source is that I tried to sell it in America, and Americans say, well, what do we want an English spy? Why should we be interested in English spy? We've got plenty of American ones, you know. Yeah. So they thought it was kind of coming to an end a bit. So the actual theme, I think, helped identify what James Bond was, you know, the sort of charismatic spy.
Yeah.
Went off with the girls.
I mean, I was obsessed with the Bond films when I was a kid. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have Bond posters, actually the English Bond posters hanging in my living room for Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely loved them when I was a kid. I still do, actually.
I was on both of those. So
See, that's something we should talk about. What other Bond films besides the theme did you play on?
Well, I did.
Because they all had their own theme music outside of the original.
But once John Barry stopped doing it and other people came in, they didn't use me. I think they used their own guys and stuff. I was on Goldfinger. The last one I was involved with was License to Kill, and then, but prior to that, about 5 or 6.
And Bond people are fanatical collectors and you know, and movie buffs. That's probably the most successful movie franchise ever.
That's
right. I'm sure it is.
So. Yeah. Well, that's why to me this guitar is which I actually played the Bond theme on. But a guy called up and said, I've got some Fenders here and they want to promote it. Will you take a Fender? So I said, well, yeah, I'll take a guitar anytime. In April, I was doing this gig, and we came out afterwards, and I was loading the car up, and these guys started hustling me, you know, saying, hey, what you doing, man? You know, all this, and it was starting to get a bit nasty. For no reason, I hadn't done anything to them at all. They were just... So one of the guys hit me, and I thought, well, this is it. I'd packed up, got in the car and drove off, but left the Fender 61 the side of the road, not knowing that, you see, until I got back home, and the next morning I opened it. I thought, oh my God, it's gone. Where, you know, I've lost it. Tried to trace it, nowhere. You know, these guys obviously taken it.
So the Strat was gone.
The Strat was gone, and it was a terrible moment, really, because you opened the trunk of a guitar, or the boot, boot of a car. I can't believe must be under here. No, it's not. So then the James Bond theme recording came up, and I had to use this one. And the way I played it and the way it was recorded, we got that great sound. And because I couldn't get another Fender Stratocaster until the insurance came through, and it was $172 for a Fender Stratocaster back in 1962. And I got my next Fender around about November or something.
Yeah.
And because they weren't plentiful. I mean, they were coming in dribs and drabs from the States.
Oh, wow.
And of course, various people stores wanted them to sell them. And they'd already given me one, so they weren't going to give me another one.
Yeah.
Now you've got to buy it. So, oh dear. So, but that's had an impression on me. It's had an impression on the world of the Dr. No scenes, and it's been good to me. And as I say, I wouldn't have changed it for a thing.
And it is the most unsuspecting guitar for that theme.
Well, it is. I mean, people say there it is, but and it's moved nations.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So I won't threaten you with playing it.
So the Goldfinger theme, recorded with Shirley Bassey. How was that?
Well, that was interesting because it was a John Barry session again. We had the orchestra there, and with this particular, the Goldfinger, at the end of it, there's this long note that John Barry wanted her to sing. But we did it. We got to the end of it when she was doing the serious take, and the note kind of faded. It didn't happen. It wasn't very good. So John Barry got all upset about it. He said, "Come on, you've got to get this note. It's important to the ending of the song.
Yeah.
The long note at the end." So she said, "Just wait, hang on a minute then." See, so there was all this rustling, and because she was in this isolation kind of cubicle. And over the edge comes a braque. So she said, "Let's hope we get it this time." So I said, "No, let's take it up a key. This will make it more difficult." Anyway, she got it, and we all had a good laugh about that. But she's a great performer, and I've had the pleasure of working with her a lot. Doing some recordings and concerts and stuff and TVs. Yeah, she's a good performer. They've all meant something. The themes, and I'm just glad that I was part of the first one. Certainly.
Yeah.
History in the making.
That is history. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
it's easily the most recognized movie theme of any. As soon as that gun fires and you hear the guitar,
Especially
as soon as
of course,
it is right there.
That's right. Especially at the Olympics in America, where who was it dived out of the helicopter?
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that?
I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I can't remember now. It was I think it was made up to look like the Queen of England or something.
Yeah.
But there's dang what's going with you. So I've been part of quite a few occasions.
Yeah,
It's wonderful. And I was part of Peter Noon and Herman's Hermits, which the Silhouettes and all the various one of his hits, 2 or 3 or 4 I was on.
So you've worked with pretty much everybody, but one track that you've done kind of sticks out in my head, that you worked with George Martin, the Ringo theme.
Oh, yes, that's right. I got a call, not from George, but the EMI fixer, well, it was, because George was working for EMI. And he said, "Oh, George Martin wants you to come and record something for him. When can you do it?" So I said, "Well, when, name it, and if I can do it, I'll do it." So anyway, I turn up there, and there was just this one thing that I had to play, which was Ringo's theme, which is at the end of the film.
Yes.
That goes on. And so I then became part of Hard Day's Night, which has turned out to be another iconic film. Representing, which is wonderful, representing that era perfectly. They kind of had that knack of summing the situation up. And
they definitely did.
Yeah, that casual yet intense way of recording things, and I mean their songs. If you listen to the words and things, and their songs and the melodies and chords, you think, well, sometimes there's changes. Is it that his hand slipped and it works, or was it? Definite,
that's the spontaneity,
right.
of that style of recording.
Yeah.
You're even on my mother and father's song, Tom Jones. It's not unusual.
Oh, that's right.
I know that's another one that you played on. I mean,
I did a lot with Tom Jones. Well, he did a lot down at Decca 2 in the smaller studio underneath. We did with various MDs and things. Yeah, when the Bee Gees, for example, first came over from Australia, and Bill Shepherd was the MD, and I didn't know that these sort of 3 lanky guys were going to go on to be
huge.
The Bee Gees. Yeah. Of course, a lot of things happen to them now, but back then they were all sort of keen and up and at it, and
it's amazing to have such a career to play with so many people. You know?
And of course the IBC was where I recorded Lulu's Shout. We did the recording of Shout there, and it was one of those recordings that after you've done it, you knew that was it. It was going to be. It didn't happen often, but sometimes you recorded it and played and become part of it, and you knew that it was going to be a hit.
Yeah, this is special.
This is special. I remember the guy, the engineer, I think it might have been Adrian Kerridge, who was a wonderful engineer. I think he was working at IBC then. He said, "Come up, guys, and listen to it." So we went upstairs and listened, and when it finished, nobody said anything. You know, it was like silence. And somebody said, "That's a hit," and said, "Yeah, yeah," and everybody's like, yeah. It was like one of those shock moments.
Amazing when that happens. You can feel it in the room. Yeah.
It was good. It was good moments.
So, any regrets? Anybody you wanted to work with, you didn't get to work with, or?
Yeah, I missed Frank Sinatra by a phone call because I picked the phone up and took about 4 or 5 sessions. It's one of those situations where you had to do them all, you didn't do any of them. Mm-hmm. And I took those, wrote them, put them in the book. And then about 2 days later, the contractor who was fixing for Frank Sinatra called up and said, "Can you do these dates? It's Frank Sinatra." And I said, "I can't get out of these other ones, you know." So the story, funnily enough, with Frank Sinatra, I digress slightly, was they'd actually booked Pi Studios to do these sessions for Frank Sinatra. Uh-huh. And always apparently, before Sinatra got anywhere, it had been scoped out, you know, what it was like, good, was it decent, the height right, and all this sort of business. So they had all this studio all done and painted. There was lines on the wall, and the studio floor had been polished, and oh dear. And these guys turned up in front of Sinatra, and they said, "We'll come to see it, you know, what's it like?" So, and they opened the door, and they said, "Where's the elevator?" They said, "Oh, we haven't got an elevator. Mr. Sinatra don't use stairs." So they turned around, and that was it. That was like cancelled. So they had to find another studio, which was CTS, which is straight off the pavement into the studio. So they used that one, and I went to Pi to do a session, and there was this Mike, was it Mike? Yeah, the engineer, swearing and sweating and all that. Frank Sinatra was recorded, had to be done twice, so everything was safe. So they had to take half of Pi Studios apart and take it to this CTS and set it up in their like little studio too. I regret that, missing that. But apart from that, no, life's been good to me, I must admit. I've got a wonderful wife, married 55 years now, and 2 kids, and very happy. And we're just kind of retired, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't play much now at all. I do sort of play for my own amazement more, you know.
Yeah.
Because I set myself a standard way back, and various things like muscles and nerves and things start changing, and they don't always happen. I always remember there was one disastrous moment for me. There was a great musician, Ken Thorne, did a lot of film work, and he booked me to come in and just play this solo on one of the themes he'd got in the film. Sat in this thing like that, and I was playing, and this finger started to feel a bit funny, and I went da da, and it didn't go down, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? So I da da. It might seem strange. I went hot. The whole studio started to go around. You know, it's just like my fingers aren't working. You know, what's good to being a guitar player if your fingers don't work? Anyway, it came back to life again. I did it and all that. And Ken's saying, "You okay?" Because I must have gone white. And I said, yeah, just do it again. So, and it worked. But now and again, it used to feel a bit strange, and still does. I don't know what something's going on in there.
Kind of
I've been to
carpal
doctors.
tunnel or something?
Yeah, it's just nerves, overuse.
Yeah.
You know, if you do 9 hours a day on a 12-string, it comes like that. But no regrets. Just happy and retired and enjoying America.
Very nice. Well, you know, I'd love to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
It's a pleasure, Jesse.
You've been become a great friend.
Yes.
And glad I met you. And it's amazing to see and hear about your career and all the people you've played with. And I think you're probably one of those guitar players that more people have heard and don't really realize it. And
yeah, that's been said before. It's been good. Thank you very much, Jesse.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.